Hey, it's DJ. Before we get into today's episode, I wanted to let you know about something I just launched. If your caseload isn't full and you're not sure why, I think my new full practice review can help. I personally audit your Psychology Today profile, your website, your Google business listing, your social media, everything you have out there. And I tell you exactly what's working, what's broken, and what to fix first. You get a scored report, a custom niche statement written for you, and a strategy call where we walk through everything together. No guessing, no templates, just me looking at your stuff and giving it to you straight. 2 options starting at $4.97. Check it out at privatepaypractitioners.com/services. All right, let's get into it. Good evening or good afternoon, wherever you are. It is DJ, and I am back with Private Pay Practitioners Premium Podcast. I am always excited to have a new guest, and I thought I was going to have 2, but tonight I have 1, and maybe the other person will pop in. We'll just pivot because I love a good pivot. Tonight I have Dr. Matthew Strobel here. He's a licensed clinical psychologist out of New Jersey. And he has a group practice, and we're talking all about group practices tonight. Now, the way you pronounce your group practice, is it NavSync?
It's Navasync, actually. Yeah.
NavSync.
Yeah, the locals know.
I struggled with this all week because I was like, I was going to call you NavSync Psychological Services.
Yeah. Yep. Named after, there's a river right by my office, and so it's named after that.
Oh, see, I love that. And that's
Yeah.
precious. You just pulled from your experience there, right? But now people who listen to this all over the country or maybe even the world now know about it.
Never know.
And you're also a co-founder of Practice Together. It's a program specifically designed to help therapists build and grow their group practices, correct?
Correct. Yeah, we work with people who are just interested in starting a private practice, or they've got a practice and they're trying to grow it into a group practice. Kind of talk about all the things that we wish we learned in grad school and we were never taught, and all the mistakes we made and learned the hard way, and try to shortchange that, make it faster for people with that learning curve.
Yeah. I mean, wouldn't that be great if they had how to run a practice as a class,
Yep.
you know,
Just
or
talking to one of my
something?
students today about that. I really wish psychology schools, LCSW schools, LPC, etc., would partner with a school of business, right? Just, can I take a marketing class as an elective? Can I take a how to start a
Sure.
business plan as an elective? I get it. It may not work in the course requirements, but the value there would be huge. That's the stuff we're not trained in, and we've got to figure out the hard way.
Oh, yeah. I'll tell you, when my book came out, the Private Pay Practitioners Playbook, I reached out to over 100 institutions. Hey, I would love to come do a free chat with your students, a free workshop, a free lecture, something to help people understand that there are options beyond, community mental health or private practice on insurance. And you know what I heard?
Crickets.
Crickets.
Yep. Yep.
I had to tell my team, I was like, look, we've reached out to 100 different places. We got to just stop because I want to put energy somewhere else.
Yeah, yeah. If it's not working, try something. You got to pivot, man. Right? It's the word of the night.
Yes, yes, that is the word of the night, pivot. So tell us about you and your business. How did you get started?
Yeah, so I was actually trained as a school psychologist and worked in public school settings for a long time. Both my parents were public educators, so I was very familiar with that world. And the one thing they told me I couldn't be was a teacher, because they kind of saw how difficult it was and the way things were changing and developing. And, being an oppositional teenager, I was like, no problem. I'll find a back door into working in school somehow. I fell in love with psychology in a high school class, and then fell in love with school psychology in grad school, and did that for a while. And then as a doctoral level psychologist, I was like, all right, I did all this training. Why am I not getting licensed? Time to do that. Did that. And I was like, okay, now what? Maybe I'll try to join a practice. So that was initially my goal. And someone in my area was had a practice and had some space, and I reached out to her and said, "Hey, heard good things, would love to come work for you." And she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, there's a misunderstanding. I'm not hiring people. I just have office space." And so I was like, "Oh, I guess I'm starting my private practice now."
Oh,
Um,
wow.
Jumped in the deep end and learned how to swim real fast. And so I started, and it was just me for a little while, doing some clients after school hours. I'd work in the schools and then see people a couple nights a week. And over time, I was like, man, I'm getting more referrals than I can handle. And I was sending them out to some friends in the field. And I was like, wait a minute, what if I hired somebody? So then I
Yep.
jumped into that deep end of, okay, now I'm a practice owner and a boss. And I was very fortunate. I had a really, really good friend who we had kind of gone different ways in the psychology world. He was working for a major company and they lost some contracts and were downsizing. And I literally called him that day, not knowing any of this, and said, "Hey, man, like I've been at you for a while to come work with me. This is the last time I'm going to bother you about it. I don't want to be annoying." And he said, "Dude, I literally lost my job today. I'll be there tomorrow. What do I wear?" And I was like, "Let's go. We're going to figure this out." And so fate,
Wow.
man, it just kind of made it all work. Um, and since that time, I mean, there's story after story of people on our team just finding us in one way or another. And then we've built it from there. My wife is also a psychologist and board certified behavior analyst. And so she worked in schools for a
What?
while and then transitioned out and now works here and runs our evaluation team and leads all of that. So it's just really been a family business.
Man, this is an awesome origin story.
It's interesting, I think.
Yeah, I'm loving how it's all like kind of came together. Tell us about like what was that like starting to put the pieces together to have a team once your colleague came on and then someone else came on? Like what was that like for you?
Yeah, and I love the way you describe it as like a team, right? Because that's our mentality is that we have a team and a good team, whatever sport you want to talk about, everyone has their position, but people can also slide a little bit, right? So if we use baseball as an analogy, like, okay, I play first base, but I could also play second in a pinch and maybe even short, right? And if I'm an outfielder, maybe I'm a really good center fielder, but if they need me, I could go play right or left. So that's really kind
Yeah.
of how we've tried to design things. Like everyone has their niches and their specialties, which helps with referrals, but also we can all kind of treat something. It's almost like this big Venn diagram where there's a little circle in the middle and all of our circles around it. There's some overlap, and sometimes it's something where only two of us can work with it, or three of us, and sometimes it's something where 12 of us could work with it. And so we just keep trying to find people that fit on the team because they just fit in with our culture and climate and have the expertise we're looking for, but also bring something new to the table.
Oh man, yeah. It has to be a team approach. I think everyone has to be invested
Yeah.
in the business, the practice, the clients, to make it all run smoothly.
Yeah, 100%. We use the phrase all the time, people over profits. And that's really what's important to us from our values. And,
Yep.
and everybody here, that has to be the mentality. Otherwise, they're not going to work out. And look, the reality is from time to time, we make a hire that just over time we realize isn't the right fit. And they're in it for the money and they're not in it for the values that we hold near and dear. And, we find a way to say, hey, look, this just isn't the right place for you. And that's that, unfortunately. But at the end of the day,
Right.
I need people who are going to be here to help people, and that's what's most important.
Yeah. And so you're also playing that human resources role, right? You play all the roles,
Yeah.
wear all the hats.
I don't wear the finances hat. I leave that to my wife. She handles
Oh,
all the banking and the payroll and the business. And yeah, I don't want any part of that. So she does all of those things. But yeah, pretty much all the networking. I handle every call, intake call myself. I do all the screenings.
goodness.
Uh, it's really important to me that when people call, they get me because I want to know what they need. And I know my team really well. So I can match them
Hmm.
up and I can figure out who the best person is. And I also need to know from my team's perspective, like where they're at, not just professionally, but personally, right? one of my team members is getting married really soon. I'm not going to kill him with cases right now. He's got really big plans, right? And we
Right.
want him to be taking on more work. He wants it. He's like, yeah, I'll take it, no problem. Like I know you would, and you're not allowed to have it right now because I need to protect you and your future wife and make sure things go great for you guys. And so we try to really meet people in the practice, both referrals and our staff, and match them together in a way that everyone gets good, high quality, evidence based treatment, and our staff is really happy to provide it.
Ma- You are boss of the year?
I don't know about that.
No, but I'm meaning like I really like how you are involved. I'm shocked to hear that you're taking the intake calls and you have a team, right? And so that really speaks to, I think, the high level of care that clients can expect at your practice because the owner of the practice is front and center,
Right.
right? They're not wondering who's behind the business. You're right there.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that that is often a triage call, right? We were kind of talking a little bit before off camera about, call I got today with a mom with a really tough situation with a young adult, and you can hear the desperation in her voice. And I have an amazing admin, by the way. She is phenomenal. But I
Hmm.
need someone that has that clinical background to be able to kind of get that parent through that call and say, look, like you're in a tough spot. Here's some resources to get you started right now. Let me talk to my team. Let's figure out what we can do to help you. I will get back to you within the next 48 hours once I hear from them, and we're going to work on this together. And I think having the clinical background to be able to do that really makes that work well.
Yeah.
Look, I've
Yeah.
had plenty of business coaches tell me this is stupid and I shouldn't do it and it's a waste of time, but that doesn't line up with what my values are. And at the end of the day, that's the life I want to live.
I that is so important. The values that we bring to the business. I have seen business fizzle out because you didn't know what the hell the values were.
Right.
But when you know your values, I mean, it strengthens your business every single day. You know what you're doing, you feel it, right? And yes, some business coaches probably said, "Hey, don't do it. It's a waste of your time." I think it's brilliant. Um, maybe not every call, but like, yeah, it makes sense to me that you would do that. It speaks to kind of like where I was when I had a group practice. My hands were all over the place, right? Because I need to know what the hell is going on. So I was very much like you're describing, knowing who was coming in, what was the story. And but
Right.
for me, it took me out of doing most of the clinical work that I loved, and so I had to like reorganize and then, ultimately decided to kind of right size and go back to just being an individual practitioner. So how do you balance, your admin role, your leadership role, and your clinical role?
Yeah. We constantly just kind of use FTP, find the balance, right? And we talk about it all the time. We've written some curriculum that's all lessons built into it. And it's such an important topic. Look, the reality is without my wife, there's none of this works, right? Because she's then managing not just the business side, not just the testing side of things, but also the family side of things, right? So I am
Yeah.
very blessed and fortunate to have a partner, not just in business, but in life that can do all of that and understands, right? Because she's got the clinical training when I'm like, hey, it's going to be a late one tonight. I got someone here and I'm not going to make it home. Right. And,
Yeah.
I've got three kids. My oldest is 10. So they're all pretty young. And it's
Yeah.
also finding the balance of like, hey, dad wasn't home last night, but I'm going to spend a lot of time this weekend and the phones are going to be off and I'm not going to be taking calls and I'm not going to be doing anything besides dedicating that time to hanging out with you guys and figuring out things. Oh, we're going on a bike ride. We got lights. So if I get home late, we have lights and we can still ride around the neighborhood with our bikes, right? And figuring out those ways
Mm,
to really find that balance. And then I think
yeah.
personally, I every morning before work I go to the gym, right? And that's my time, and the phone's off, and I get that lift in, and I spend the time there, and then it preps me for the day and gets everything going, and that provides that personal balance.
Mm, I really love that. Yeah. Yeah. We're for me, like always tweaking it. Like, if
Yep.
something's not working quite right, let's make an adjustment. You know, um, I think that's a gift. And, not every professional who runs a business has that. And you are in the business also of teaching people like how to structure, I assume, and run like a successful practice, much like myself as a business coach.
Right.
Can you talk to us a little bit more about practice together and how that all came to be?
Yeah, so I really believe in the power of connection and making those connections. And so Dr. Michelle Drabkin has a practice, a group practice, a little bit north of where mine is. And I just met her through a Facebook group, and I noticed the kind of posts that she was making. Really smart, really evidence based, high quality treatment. I was like, I got to talk to this person. Like, who is this? So we got talking and became, professional colleagues and friends over time. And, we would one day we're talking about how a lot of times friends will reach out to us and ask for advice because they're in the field and they're trying to figure it out. She had already started a group of that with kind of a bunch of our friends. We kind of meet together and talk about the business side of things. And we were just spitballing ideas. And I was like, well, what if we kind of did this as a kind of a side hustle, right? As a side business. And we kind of formalized it and opened it up to people that we don't know, right? Not our friends.
Right.
And how we created practice together. So we created a group where we meet every month and set some goals and have some topics and kind of how to run a business, how to start a business, mistakes that we made that you can learn from, etc. And then we're also kind of always talking about like hot topics in the field, like what is AI going to do to everybody, and what are you guys hearing? It
Yeah.
also becomes a great opportunity for people to troubleshoot. Oh, there was a board complaint. What am I supposed to do about that? Or, oh, one of my people just quit, and now I'm not sure what to do with all these clients, and how do we manage those things? And what's great, with Michelle and I is that combined, we've got a lot of it's again that Venn diagram, right? Where there's
Yep.
things she does and that I do, but there's some overlap. But then I do a lot of stuff she doesn't do, and she does a heck of a lot of stuff that I don't do. And so we're able to kind of really speak to those experiences.
Oh, that's nice. So you got two businesses going on, a thriving family, right? And still taking care of yourself, which is really good to hear, right? Because
Right.
without you, like a lot of those things start to fall apart, right?
Yeah.
It is so important that we do that in that balance piece. I know with stress and like world events and all that kind of stuff, and I try to tell people, I was like, look, the stuff that you're stressed about, your clients are probably stressed about too,
100%. Yeah.
or those potential clients.
Right. Yeah. And that goes from local all the way up to international, right? Like right now in my local
Absolutely.
area, they're talking about closing a bunch of local schools and school
Oh
boards.
no.
And it's kind of a really problematic situation. It's creating a lot of stress in the local community. And we're trying to respond and provide some free services and put some things out there for
Wow.
psychoeducation about how to talk to your kids about this because it's scary, right? Uh,
Yeah.
and then we can just keep scaling that up to state level and national level and international things that are going on. And it's tough right now, right? It's tough to be
It's
mentally well.
tough. It is. And and I was meeting with some folks today in our Patreon community, and the topic was really one of the topics was like, where are the clients? And I said, listen, people are afraid to make moves right now.
Yep.
Any kind of moves. They may need it. They may need the therapy. They probably are experiencing a lot of the anxiety, maybe feelings of depression or any other kind of symptoms, but they're still afraid to make a move with the way things are shaping up in the world. And I said, just be there when they're ready.
Yeah.
Take care of you. Take care of you to the best of your ability so you're there when they're ready. The clients are out there, but they also have to make adjustments, you know?
No, I think that's spot on, and it's really the time to be planting a lot of seeds and trying to water those seeds and make sure they get sunlight. And they're not all going to grow, but some will flourish and blossom and turn into clients, right? This is a time, I
Yep.
think, to be doing more networking, doing more talks at conferences, listening to podcasts, getting on podcasts, all of those things. When
Yes.
those clients are ready, they can find you. I was talking with a friend the other day who texted me like, "Hey, are your referrals kind of drying up? Like, we're hurting over here." I'm like, "Everybody's hurting right now. Everybody internationally, people I'm talking to are like, hey, it's tough right now for private pay. People are worried about money. People are really worried. How much is gas by you right now? It's not cheap by me."
Right. That's the thing. Like I told somebody it was like, oh, it's 340 something. And then they told me it was seven where they were. What?
Yeah, we're at like 422, 425. Like,
Right.
it's tough. And so people for private pay, they're also, I think, often thinking like, well, I'm paying how much in health insurance, and why am I not going to use that to go pay
Yeah,
someone out of pocket? And look, at the end of the day, we're offering a product and a service, and people are going to see if
absolutely.
they want to spend their money on it. And I think there will always be people who are willing to do private pay because they recognize the value. And I think that's what's the most important thing is how you can talk about the value of seeing a private pay clinician and why that can be so beneficial. And I think it's also about
Yeah.
hey, pivot, right? Sometimes you got to get a little bit creative. We do a lot of evaluations. We've had to figure out different ways to offer those evaluations at different price points because they can be
You're
very
right.
costly. So we had to pivot.
Yeah, you're right. Because either it's some money or no money.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, those are the things that we have to think about as business owners.
Right.
Right. And what I try to tell people is like, don't start like reducing your fees before you even start talking to people. Um, you know, there's a lot of that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if that's part of your overall business strategy, yes, maybe. Right. But if you start offering reduced rates while somebody's calling you asking if you have an appointment available and you hadn't even assessed anything, you're shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah, I think a lot of people in the private pay world are really scared right now. And then we
They
kind of
are.
have this panic reaction of like, well, what can I do? Well, maybe if I offered at this price. I think the reality is, and what we know about economics is if let's just use some easy numbers here for purposes of discussion. If someone can afford 200, they can probably afford 225 or 250, right?
Correct.
You're not losing the client on that number because you're not going to offer that for $50, right? Where you may lock that client down. And so I
Right.
think you've got to be really careful and really smart to your point about let's look at the numbers, let's look at some assessment and look at some data. You're not going to make a sale on every client, right? And that's really, another
No,
part of what we were never taught is sales. And that's a big part of this job, right?
it
Someone's
is.
calling you and they want to know what you have to offer. That's a sales pitch. Let's not sugarcoat
It
it.
is a sales pitch. It is a sales pitch. But one thing that I try to stress is like, don't go putting yourself on clearance.
Right. Right. Know your worth, know your value. I mean, that's a whole topic that we covered in practice together is know what your
Yeah.
value is. I had someone call not too long ago. I do a lot of sport performance work, and this person's engaged in a very expensive sport and telling me how they're traveling to do the sport. And then when I said what my fee was, like, I don't know, can you do like maybe a 30-minute session instead of hour-long sessions, and I'll pay you like half. And I was like, no. I was like, I want to be effective. I want it to be effective for you. I don't feel that I can be effective in that time. I'm happy if you want to give me a call at some point. I'm happy to help you. Here's how I could be helpful. But no,
Right.
I'm not going to go half rate. Sorry. That's just not what we're offering.
Right. Yep. Not the bargain bin. We're not the flea market, but we are business owners. So you have to structure that accordingly. One of the things that people talk to me about is like reduced rates. Sure, I offer reduced rates in my practice, but I have a whole policy and application process.
Yeah, we do the same. We do reduced rates, we do some pro bono work. But
Yes.
I need to know the person really needs it. One of the things that we found really helpful is trusted referral sources. I've got a
Yeah.
lot of friends that still work in schools, and if they call me and say, "Hey, Matt, like this family could really benefit from you guys, and there's no chance that they can afford you. That person's in the door within that week, and they're paying what they could pay because I know that it's already
Mm.
been vetted, right? It's been vetted by someone that I can trust, and that's worked really nicely for us.
Yeah, I really appreciate that.
Yeah,
Those trusted referrals and they're vetting the folks. And so you know the story, right? You
right,
know that something's up and they're not going to be able to pay whatever that premium fee is. But maybe they could pay something.
right, right, exactly. And look, we know the
Right.
data on that and the research, right? People that pay even $1 for therapy are gonna have better outcomes than if they paid zero.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. I don't think we have to start from zero.
Yeah,
I think you start with a conversation, and you try to meet people where they are if you can. And I know not everyone can. But I do know that some people say, well, I have a number in mind that I have to meet. And so they may be leaving some monies on the table while chasing like this magical number. And there's a consequence to that.
100%. And look, I don't know about you, but I hate being in the car buying situation, right? Where like you got a number and I got a number, and like whose number and where are we going? You got to talk to the guy in the back. I don't want to play that game on the phone with
I,
somebody. You know,
no,
this is what it costs.
I don't have.
We're here to help, and you can't afford that. Like, tell me what you can afford because I don't want to start throwing numbers back and forth, and we'll figure it out. If we can do it, we'll do it, and if we can't, we can't. Everyone here has a set number of sessions per week that we offer at a reduced rate, so it's kind of built into the overall practice and our business model. But there's a
Yeah,
limit to that, right? And so depending on how
right.
many hours a week they work, there's this many sessions, or this many evaluations
Mm.
tied to that. And that's there. But if that's full, then there's just a wait list for that. We have, a separate wait list of low cost or pro bono sessions, and then we have our regular wait list.
Oh, wow. That's really cool. Yeah, for me, my policy is I don't do a reduced rate for an initial session. That it took years for me to get to that place
Yeah.
for a variety of reasons. I landed there, and I'm okay with that. And I'm just upfront with people. I don't offer reduced rates to people who are not actively a client.
Right. Yeah. I think there's a lot of value behind that because I think, and I've talked with friends and we've had it on rare occasion here from time to time where you kind of end up feeling burned or resentful because they're on the phone. I need the reduced rate, etc. And then all of a sudden they're pulling up the brand new Mercedes, and you're like, wait a minute, what's
Exactly.
going on here? And look, people can choose to spend their money how they want to spend their money. I'm not going to make a judgment call about that. And everyone has different values about what's important to them, but that's also a big part of that, right? And we
Yeah.
talk a lot about that, especially when we're working with kids and adolescents and teens. Again, when we do a lot of sport work, well, hold on a minute. They've got a private batting coach and a private pitching coach, and you're paying for batting cage time, and you're paying for this. Hold on, but that's getting really expensive. But you want the mental skills
Ooh.
part, really reduced rate. Hold on a minute here. Something's not adding up. Let's think about that, right? Because we know
Oh,
we
yeah.
them better, but you're willing to pay full fee for somebody who played D2 ball in college, now does batting instruction and is charging crazy amounts of money, but you're not willing to pay for the mental health side of things. And I think some of that's just the stigma around mental health still.
The stigma is still there. It is still there. Yeah, it sounds like some of those parents have to like reevaluate. And that's not on the kid, of course. That's on the parent to look at themselves, right? Um, it's so interesting how all these different dynamics can show up in a business. I'm curious for you, did you always know you were going to be private pay?
I think so. I think again, when I started, it was just me, and it was a couple, sessions a week seeing folks. And I just didn't want to go through the process of getting paneled and have to do the paperwork. And it just seemed like way too much work. Um, and then I also thought about it a little bit more, and I was like, I want to provide high quality evidence based treatment to folks, and I don't want anybody to tell me how to do my job, right? I don't want to be in a position where I'm like, this person needs more sessions, and you're telling me, oh, they've met their cap, right? Or you
Right.
can't do that, or oh, they need hour sessions, but you're saying you're only going to reimburse for 45
For
minutes.
45 minutes.
I just don't want to do that because I can't give the client what they need at that point without impacting the business side of things. Now, look, even at a network, we provide super bills and people put in for them. And from time to time, things get flagged. I had a case years ago where I was working with a young adult on the autism spectrum that was really having a tough time. And we were doing 2 sessions a week and a parent coaching session every week. And that was really what was keeping him out of the hospital, and it got flagged. And the insurance company called me and said, hey, we're just, it seems like a lot. And I said, yeah, it is a lot because he's really struggling. So here are our options. I'm certainly happy to drop it down to the once a week 45 minutes, and then you guys better be ready, willing, and able to pay the inpatient stay, because that's going to be real costly. And that's where we're at
Right.
with it. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh no, we're not. Okay, sure, yeah, we're just checking in, right? And so I think that sometimes it's that tough call and pushing back on the insurance, even if you are at a network, and getting someone on the phone who's not just a rep, and someone that has some,
Yeah.
go for the peer review part of it and talk through that. And we've had it with evaluations too, where they're saying, oh, well, you're
Wow.
charging this and that eval, you should only be spending X amount of time doing that type of testing. And I'm like, great. Yeah. So that 5-year-old with raging ADHD who was on the table, then he was under the table, then he was in the bathroom, and then he was standing on his head. It took a little bit
Ah,
longer. So yeah, we had a few more billing codes for that, but you've never met this kid.
I
So
never even met him.
I don't know why you're trying to tell me how to do my job. Right. And
Oh, Steve. Your clients are lucky that you're willing to get on that phone. I don't do the phone calls anymore. I just don't have the patience because
yeah,
I'm way out of network, private pay. I don't want to talk to nobody. If a client needs me to like write something or change something, like we can do that in a session. But I know bandwidth, right?
yep,
We all have to think about bandwidth, boundaries too. And if we have the bandwidth to do it, sure, why not? Right. Like some people say, I'm not doing any kind of like, paperwork for you to get
yeah,
out of work or any of that kind of stuff. I say I will absolutely do it while you're sitting in front of me
yeah, yeah, yeah.
because I don't have a policy to charge you when I'm, after you've gone home.
Right. Yeah. So we do it. We have the policy. So if someone
Yeah,
needs something, they need a letter, or they want a collateral call, things like that, then, that's built into our client agreement of how we do that, which, works out nicely most of the time.
good. Yeah, yeah. And then, as a business owner, we're all going to have different agreements,
Right.
different things that work for you. And that's one thing I tried and I talk to people who see me for coaching. It's like if it's not written, you live in vagueness.
Yep.
I don't like being in vagueness about most things.
Fair.
I've
Yeah.
lived life in vagueness. I don't like it.
And that's where people get in a lot of trouble, right? And I see these posts on like Facebook groups and things of like, well, I spent all this time writing this letter for somebody, and then I tried to charge the person, and they're pushing back on that. And my response is always the same: what is your policy? What is your agreement? What did they sign? Because if they didn't, then that is a little bit of bait and switch, right? And as a client, you're going to
Right.
jeopardize your therapeutic relationship with them. People aren't happy. And the world we live in right now, it takes me 2 seconds to go on your Google profile and leave a really horrible review. And good luck getting that taken down. It's next to impossible unless you want to pay for it. We've got one right now on our Google business page that was someone that never even came here. They went to a different practice with a similar name, got confused. They left this terrible review. I can't even get that taken down, but I've got companies willing to promise they can do it for like $700, right? Because they know how to exploit the system.
I think that's a scam, honestly. But listen, that happens all the time.
Yeah.
Somebody's pissed, somebody's ticked off, and it's like, oh, I'm going to Google. And I got one from someone who never even came to see me because
Yep.
they said I couldn't figure out their insurance. I don't take insurance.
Right. Right.
And when they left it, had been out of insurance,
Right.
but I that thing's been sitting out there for years. I can't do anything about it.
Right. Yeah. And I think it's even harder when it is a legitimate client, right? Hey,
Right.
this person charged me all this money to write this letter. I never agreed to that. I felt like I was taken
Yeah.
advantage of. That's a really tough review to bounce back from.
You can't pull out of that. I don't know. I
Yeah.
mean, that's rough. So I don't have time for that. So I just try to stay in alignment with what's written on these papers,
Yep.
and get them signatures, send out that good faith estimate, which I can't stand, by the way. Um, and just be clear in the business, right? So you are running multiple businesses, you're supporting a lot of clients. How many clinicians do you have?
So right now we have 11, some full time, some part time, and then we have a number of students. So we have two undergraduate students, a master's level student, and a doctoral candidate.
Goodness gracious, you are running things over there. I'm tired just hearing about it. I
Yeah,
mean,
it's awesome. You really can. Yeah, yeah.
yes, I can listen. Good on you. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. That's a
You know,
I. I did it before, but that sounds intense.
yeah,
11 plus the students.
I've got a great team, man. And when you have a great team, it's not everything, but it's a lot of things, right? When I
Yeah,
know that things are taken care of, clients are getting good quality care. At the end of the day, we're doing good work and we're making people better. That's what's so that charges my battery so quickly, right? Uh,
yeah.
and nothing is more rewarding when someone catches me walking out in the waiting room. They're like, "Oh, you're the owner, right?" I'm like, "Yeah, what's up?" Like everything, and I'm always like panicked, right? Is everything okay? Who screwed up? And they're like, "I just want to let you know I've been working with so and so, or my kid's been working with so and so, and it's just been so wonderful, and I really appreciate everything that you guys have done and everything like that." I'm like, "Poof, that is like turbocharging that battery, right?"
Yes. That's exciting. What's one thing that you think the private pay community could benefit from hearing right now? Either a business tip or tool, something to navigate current, stressors. What would you leave us with?
Hang on. I think back to what you were saying
Mm,
before. I think this is a really just challenging and difficult time, and there's a lot of things that are all over the place and feel very sideways. And I think that it's really about staying the course. Like I said, we're named after a river. We use a lot of nautical references. It's really about riding the wave and staying the course right now. If you had something that was working, maybe it's a little tweak here or there, but don't
yep.
upend the ship, right? That's not going to work. And so I think if you can just
Yeah.
hang tight, it's kind of anxiety treatment 101, right? Like we got to
Yeah.
go through the storm. I've got a big picture of a buffalo behind me. We use it all the time. About buffalo is a rare animal. It goes through the storm. It doesn't turn and run because it knows the storm's going to catch it. And so we talk a lot about that. Like right now, we just got to put our heads down and plow through that storm, and we will get to the other side. It may not be pretty. We may get snowed on. It may be rainy and windy, but we'll figure it out. If you turn and run, that storm's going to catch you still, and then you're just going to be exhausted
Right.
and have the bandwidth to get through it at that point. So I think if we can all
Yeah.
on and support each other, we've got to build a community.
We do. And that's why I'm here, right? So we have 16,600 plus people in the main private pay group, almost 500 in the Black private pay group, and then like 120 in the Patreon community. So, yeah, I mean, we got to have anchors. Anchors. These tigers that are behind me, those are my anchors.
Yeah,
They
man.
keep me grounded right here. Like I'm surrounded by them at all places in my house, in my home, in my life. I got one on my leg.
I've got a
They keep
buffalo on
me
my arm, man. So I get it. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Find that anchor, folks. Find that anchor. Listen, Dr. Matthew Strobel, I was so happy that we were able to connect. And I am so appreciative that you've been a part of the private pay community for a while and that you've been hanging out with us. And like, this is so fun. Is there anything that you want to promote? You want to share about where to find practice together?
Yeah, anyone can reach out to me through our website. We've got a contact form. It's navesyncpsych.com, NAVESINK, psych, PSYCH.com. Same thing. Anything that forms fill out goes right to me. I read every single one. I get back to everybody. All the typical stuff, LinkedIn, Facebook, etc. We're pretty easy to find. Reach out. I'm happy to support other people. If anyone has questions, I'm happy to make the time. And well, like I said, it's about a community, and we're all in this together.
We're all in this together. Listen, thank you so much for joining me tonight. Come back anytime.
I would love that.
You're always welcome. Yes, anytime you want to just come chat or share something, you are welcome. Just let me know. All right, folks. I have been DJ, and this has been the Private Pay Practitioners Premium Podcast. Definitely come back next week. I will have another exciting guest or two if they both show up. And we're just going to keep this ball rolling. All right, folks, have a good night. And I'll see you next time. All right, folks, that's all for this week's episode of the Private Pay Practitioners Premium Podcast. Thank you for hanging out with me, and a huge thank you to my guests for showing up and keeping it real. If you're a private pay practitioner with something to say, I want to hear from you. Go to privatepaypractitioners.com/podcast guest and fill out the application. Whether you're just starting out or you've been building for years, if you're doing the work, there's a seat at this table for you. And if you're not yet a Patreon member, let me tell you what you're missing. Early access to every episode, monthly resource drops, tools, templates, and content you can actually use in your practice today. Vault drops, community support, and direct access to everything I'm building for private pay practitioners. It's all at patreon.com/privatepay. Tiers start at $10 a month. Come join us. For everything else, courses, consulting, the playbook, the workbook, and more, go to privatepaypractitioners.com. Everything is there waiting for you. Till next time, I'm DJ Burr, and I will see you next week.